Made of soybean curds and most commonly used as a side dish, tofu is a must-have if you're getting noodles. But despite being as popular and commonly known as it is, many people still don't know what tofu actually is or how it's made. So, in today's video, we're going to be talking about exactly that, plus the different types of tofu you should know about. Let's get started. Soaking, grinding, and cooking the soybeans. The long and delicate process of making tofu begins first and foremost with soaking and grinding the soybeans, which is the main base of the tofu itself. The soybeans can be soaked at a variety of different temperatures for 4 to 6 hours, with lower temperatures being around 22 degrees Celsius and higher ones 32 degrees Celsius. However, if one would like to speed up the soaking time of the beans, then they can simply make sure the beans are ground before the soaking step. Grinding can be done using a variety of types of equipment, including micro cutters, hammer mills, and other similar pieces of equipment. It is important to note that the more thoroughly ground the slurry, the more protein extracted and the better the yield. After the beans are done being soaked and grinded, they are cooked, typically at 100 degrees Celsius to 110 degrees Celsius for around 3 to 10 minutes. This process denatures the soy protein and removes volatile bean flavors. Separating the soy milk. For the next step, the soy milk has to be separated from the solid soy pulp or fiber, also known as okara. Centrifugation and/or filtration can be used to accomplish this. Alternatively, before cooking, the okara and soy milk can be separated. Sometimes the soy milk is concentrated before being coagulated. Heat, reverse osmosis, vacuum evaporation, or nanofiltration are a few methods that can be used to accomplish this. The amount of solids present in the soy milk before coagulation greatly affects the final tofu's texture. Between 10% and 22% of the solids in soy milk can be concentrated. Coagulating. This step is probably the most important one in the entire process of making tofu. Its function is to enable the soy milk's protein and oil to coagulate. Different forms of tofu are made using various coagulants. Salts, acids, and enzymes are the 3 primary groups of coagulants that are frequently utilized. They can be used separately or in tandem. Coagulants are commonly added to soy milk while stirring it at temperatures between 60 degrees Celsius and 90 degrees Celsius, at concentrations between 1.5 and 5.0 grams per kilogram. Yields are increased by stirring the milk during the first 5 seconds of coagulation. The coagulation process is influenced by a variety of additional factors. One of them involves mixing natural oils and the coagulant vigorously to create the emulsion or suspension that contains the natural oil before the coagulation. Soybean protein subunits have an impact on coagulation as well. Compared to tofu prepared from soybeans with low 11s/7s subunit ratios, tofu made from soybeans with high 11s/7s subunit ratios has a harder texture at lower coagulant concentrations. For the greatest amount of hardness, these need additional coagulant. Pressing. Back when technology wasn't as advanced as it is now, the tofu curds were pressed with hand-turned screw passes, or just simple lever presses. However, in today's modern world, hydraulic presses, or centrifuges, are used. The soy curd is pressed to extract the extra liquid using cheesecloth or muslin to produce standard firm and extra firm tofu. Depending on the final tofu texture desired, the curd is compressed to varied degrees. Greater loads are applied to press firm tofu than less firm tofu. The tofu can then be seasoned or go through additional processing after being sliced into its desired portion sizes. Tofu that is smooth and soft doesn't need to be pressed. In these circumstances, the tofu is directly coagulated in the final container, like we previously mentioned. Pasteurizing. This is the final step in the process of making tofu. It isn't necessarily always done, but pasteurization is done so that the shelf life of the tofu can be extended. Tofu can also be processed using ultra-high temperatures, or UHT, technology and packaged aseptically to further extend shelf life. Now that we know all about how tofu is made, allow us to introduce you to some of the most common types of tofu. Block tofu. This type of tofu is very popular and probably what you'll see the most at restaurants and grocery stores. It's made using the curds and whey method we talked about earlier, and is sometimes known as cotton tofu because of its super fluffy texture. Block tofu is packaged and sold in a storage method developed all the way back in 1966 by Shoan Yamauchi in water and plastic trays. Soft block tofu. Amongst all the block tofu, the soft tofu is pressed for the least amount of time, allowing the curds to blend seamlessly into the remaining whey. Even when it's broken up, the texture of the smooth block still remains. It's got quite a delicate structure, kind of like Jell-O, but has a milky, mild flavor. Soft tofu's similarity to soft desserts makes it the perfect neutral base for a sweet touch, and it works just as well in savory dishes. Fresh silken custard tofu. Now, this type of rosy is the best for dishes that are on the delicate side. Fresh silken tofus are consumed with minimal prep, so the best place that you can get it is fresh from a local manufacturer. But be warned, even some of the nicest looking packages have the most bitter and under average tasting tofu. However, if you're lucky and find a good and reliable source, the light, slightly sweet and milky character of a fresh silken custard tofu is truly out of this world. Keep in mind that you should buy this type of tofu just before you need to use it or consume it because it turns very quickly. A sign to look for is a pink-orange hue on the surface. If you spot this, immediately throw it out and don't eat it or else you'll get sick. Firm silken tofu. Rookie mistake, but fresh silken tofu is often confused or substituted for firm block tofu, which now that you know about, should never be done. It also shouldn't be mixed up with soft silken tofu. Firm silken tofu has less water added into it when it's made, which means a denser soy milk is used. This type of tofu is on the more firm side, no surprise there, and so it holds up better when handled. Ideally, it's used in dishes in which the tofu will likely be cut into. Firm block tofu. We saved the best for last. Firm block tofu is the workhorse of the tofu family. If you're ever unsure about which type of tofu to get, firm block is the way to go, and it'll work with a ton of savory recipes. The curds in the type of tofu are very visible and tight, giving it a solid feel. While cooking, the tofu's firm body takes on a slight rubbery texture, which means you can handle each block without being worried you'll ruin it. Firm tofu also holds up quite well to frying and stuffing, so it's pretty ideal to use in lots of things. Click on one of the two videos on your screen right now, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.